everybody. This is Ben Brown. I'm the WWE Archivist, and you are in the WWE Warehouse / Archives. And I'm just going to give you a tour around, show you all the stuff that we keep here, and some of the cool things throughout WWE and the professional wrestling industry's history. Really the front here, like what we do in this sort of area of the warehouse, these are all the elements of the show that kind of come in and out, right? So you got your ring skirts, you got your ladders, you have steps, you have turnbuckles, pads, like all the elements of the show are kept up at the front here. You'll see our plethora of ladders here. They start out orange like this and we spray paint them silver. That's for matches like TLC, and for Money in the Bank and anything else that involves the ladder. You'll see we go up to, that's a 16 footer, I believe. And I think we got a 20 footer here as well. Everything is a thing here, right? So like WWE blimp and control seems very unassuming. But you remember, I remember at least, the advertising blimps that would go around inside of an arena with like Stridex or Karate Fighters or, you know, whoever a sponsor was at that time. Somebody would handle a little remote control and fly it around the arena. So that's the blimp from that. You have shark cages up there. So shark cages are when there's somebody like maybe a manager or you're somebody that you want to get to fight, like in the match is suspended above the ring. If the good guy or whoever's on the opposing team wins, they get a chance to pull that person down and beat them up for a second. And that's the kind of philosophy behind the Shark Tank match or the suspended cage. This place, by the way, goes on for absolutely ever. I'll grab things out of here and not have seen them for years and then watch a little bit of WWE programming or some old programming and go like, oh, that's where that's from. So late WCW, World Championship Wrestling, Ric Flair was institutionalized. And in the background are all these Central Florida mental hospital signs. And I literally had no idea where those were from until I rewatched that clip that I hadn't watched since, 2000, which is why I try not to throw anything away that looks like junk, because I guarantee you in several weeks I'll go, oh, that was from, or that little like deal was used as a weapon or whatever, right? The Andre, yes, it is to scale. Sorry, Rick. See you later. So yeah, the Andre is to scale. This cutout, I mean, it's on board, has been around since probably the 90s, so. Kind of cool. There's a lot of Andre the Giant stuff here. It's nice to just have him around watching over everything, and that's the kind of vibe we're going for here. It's like fun, unexpected stuff and people that we revere. The shirt, things as simple as this. This is a shirt and a tie worn by the referee Dick Kroll at WrestleMania 1. Got your sweat stains. You got your bow tie. Just anything that memorializes that WrestleMania is kind of a treasure here. There's not a lot that we have here from the first WrestleMania. It was, it was kind of a crapshoot, right? Vince was mortgaged house in order to make it work and to bring in the celebrities, and I think it worked. And now we're at 30, just about to be at 37 at some point soon. 1 to 37, and there's something from WrestleMania 1, which is cool. I wish it was a little further down, but the chair up here, that's a King of the Ring chair. That's the King of the Ring chair that Austin proclaimed. Austin 316 says, "I just whipped your ass." So, Steve Austin, in my opinion, biggest wrestling star of all time. Most money, most merchandise. We talk about The Rock. Awesome. Rock is the biggest movie star in the world right now, but Steve Austin is the biggest wrestling star of all time. And I would dare a lot of people to argue with me on that one. Let's go. You have your Roddy Piper stool, various trophies. I have tons and tons of magazines. Like, I could spend all my time in like magazines and programs and correspondence and things like that. Like, I love that sort of stuff. Everyday items turned into weapons. like a barbed wire chair, chairs that have been cracked over people's backs. The longer I work here, the more I fall in love with like very early wrestling. So this is Jim Londos, the Golden Greek. This is a fun piece because this was actually hung at a gym in Southern California called Slammers. All of the wrestlers who would have come through there signed it, including, you see, George Wagner, the Chief. George Wagner is Gorgeous George. So pretty cool to have a real signature, like the real name signature of Gorgeous George on the front of something, on the picture of Jim Londos. I mean, Count Billy Varga. Like this is going back to, I'd say this is probably put up and signed mostly in the 50s. Obviously you see 73 on here. People were signing it for a while. Archie Moore. Anyhow, I could nerd out over that for way too long, so I'll try not to. Fun little things hidden back there. A statue that we made of Seth Rollins a couple of years ago, and was dumped into a intentionally for the show, was dumped into a trash compactor, and then the head was separated, which you'll see somewhere else too. So I have little pieces of Seth Rollins memorialized body sitting around here. Fun. This stuff is great. I have this specifically out just to like show one of these boxes. So these are concept drawings for talent. So you got your type logos, inspirational stuff. Apparently Rick James is inspiration. You have different types of outfits. Lots of Rick James. This kind of went similar to that. I think he ended up having shorts. All these different drawings, and there he is. Flash Flunk / Too Cold Scorpio.
So these are literally the inspiration of how a character and a person's persona becomes a real life thing.
Yeah. This is it. This is how you go from Ben Brown to big bad beautiful Ben Brown. I don't know, whatever. So yes, this is absolutely. I mean, look at this thing. Flash Flunk concept. Base art shows Flash and the Funk Sisters. Flash is in wrestling jumpsuit of chrome yellow and blue, green and magenta rhinestone decals. Rhinestone decal on the rear of jumpsuit. Top goes across shoulder and down the back, similar to the front standard white wrestling. Anyhow, all sorts of details on that look. You got talent measurements. He's demonstrating the look backstage. Some of these things will have name, like they'll come up with a bunch of different names for somebody. You know, Steve Austin famously talks about the list that was given to him, that he eventually became Stone Cold Steve Austin, and it was like, yeah, and they gave me a list that said Fang McFrost and Stiletto. God, I can't do Steve very well. It's all part of the creative process, and I love it. Look, like there's somebody who worked for the company trying on the jacket at the office. It's fun. This is infinitely interesting and valuable because it's the story of the characters that make the show. I mean, and sometimes it's not the story of the characters that make the show. Sometimes it's something that never happened or should have happened or ended up happening in a different way. So, you know, it's all pieces to the puzzle. So speaking of like very old stuff, this is a vertical files on wrestlers that would have gone through the Houston wrestling territory. Paul Bosch. Him and his predecessor, Morris Siegel. So they would have kept a file with images of these guys. Oh, this is a good example too. It's one of my favorite things here. Come here. You have Abe King Kong Cashy as the young man. Look at those ears, just a little cauliflowered, right? Not bad, not bad. Oh, look at that move. Oh, some of this like promo artwork, I love this stuff. He's the Siberian assassin. And then look at this a little later. Look at those ears. Some of these guys, like, it's literally like 3 years in the business, they go from looking like a beautiful, like perfect, 19-year-old kid to like just haggard. Because, you're grappling, and that's, you don't see it as much anymore, but a lot of these guys during the matches, I mean, you've got somebody in a hold for a long period of time just scraping their ear. So that's where you get the cauliflower ear. I was just looking at all these all these kind of wood cases here, and some of them are in better shape than others. The one that's beat up, I can tell exactly what it is because I know that it was on the road for quite a while. You can see all the dings. And this is a recent thing, but a fun best in the world trophy. So that's Shane McMahon as the best in the world. The reason this trophy is so great, you know, all of them are very cool, but it's just like, it's so easy to kind of tote around. You know, so he can take that with him. He can put it under his arm. He can, you know, somebody could drink out of it if they wanted. You'll see back here a lot of these signs, like the yellow thing there, that's Judgment Day. These were our physical set signs. They kind of got retired when we went HD because they don't look fantastic non-HD. I still absolutely love them. You got No Mercy, Judgment Day, Armageddon is back there, Survivor Series, every type of thing you can think of that has to do with the business, whether, you know, it's garb or like a piece of paper that somebody scribbled a note on, or publication, like we keep it here. So I try to walk through as often as I can. I mean, I have a normal job at the office too. So that's to say, please forgive me for the mess. I walk through a couple of times a week. I'll be in here and I will load things and unload things and actively use this stuff too, right? So, hey, we're doing a documentary on X. Do you have this? We can put it on the background or have somebody interact with it. So this is like a very active archive. This is a very active warehouse. It's not just sitting here to like collect dust. If I can reuse it or to showcase it or to bolster some piece of content, absolutely will do so. This over here is what we kind of built for as a set, in a sense, but also just kind of a workroom for the A&E show, the WWE's Most Wanted Treasures. But I love it. I love working in here. So I have like some cool things out, some cool things kind of out and about, including these are Eddie Guerrero's boots, which, you know, Eddie is an absolute icon of the business and one of the greatest workers of all time, part of a wrestling family. The fun thing about, I believe these ones were used at WrestleMania 20 versus Kurt Angle. So in the match, he unties his laces. Kurt Angle gets him in the ankle lock and slips off, so he's able to get away because he's untied his laces. Kind of just fun little crafty ways to get out of a match and to tell a story. I mean, there's an unbelievable amount of stuff in here. I mean, here's an Undertaker hat. WrestleMania 30, this is the end of the streak. Undertaker had a WrestleMania streak of 21. He lost to Brock Lesnar that night. This hat is specifically unique. There's red in his gear. There was red in the jacket as well. So something a little different. It may not look like much, but this is Andre the Giant singlet. So this is WrestleMania 3. So you can get a sense of the size of Andre by where it was the tightest. And by the way, if you look at Andre in this thing, it is skin tight, right? So just the distance between the top of the shoulder and your rib cage here is like, look. And that's, by the way, not holding it tight. That's loose. Like that from my head to the bottom of my rib cage. Insane. Really cool, one-of-a-kind special piece. Everybody loves championships and titles. This is the first ever Intercontinental Championship. This is held by Pat Patterson, I think at one point Don Morocco, Pedro Morales, and the Intercontinental Championship is essentially it's the secondary championship within WWE, but it's also usually held by the kind of best quote unquote workers, the quote unquote the people who can put on sort of the best matches. So this is a heralded championship. A lot of the folks who have held it, Macho Man, Ricky Steamboat, Greg Valentine, Bret Hart. It's Shawn Michaels. It runs the gamut of some of the best, kind of in-ring workers of all time. And that's the first one. Cool to see because it looks like it's carpeted on the back, it was definitely made at a trophy shop. You know, that's something that you could probably have found these elements and then sort of like pieced it together. I've seen other wrestling championships that are similar to this. They're not like acid etched like we do now. Like they're actually like etched plates, which this one is, right? So you have a little more dimension. This is the ECW Championship from when ECW was a part of WWE. You got your barbed wire baseball bats in here. You have all sorts of kind of fun elements in your acrylic and you know, leathering and all that good stuff. So yeah, these are what you see on TV. These are generally, I mean, they're one of one in the case that it's the one that was used for a certain thing. You know, these things can wear out and you make a new one and you know, they get dispersed. Either talent might take it home or we got to retire it for some reason, or collectors have them. Andre's boots. This is a weight from what we refer to as the Hart Dungeon. So Stu Hart, the father of Bret Hart and Owen Hart and the whole Hart family, he had a dungeon where he trained wrestlers. And you know, obviously there's some weightlifting equipment in there, and he had these specifically punched out to say Hart on it. Just kind of a cool little artifact that you go out of your way to make your weights and put your name on your weights. We looked at the torso of him. This is the head of Seth Rollins that we're referencing. This statue head. Again, a super fun week. The boots of Buddy Rogers, the first ever WWE champion. This Ultimate Warrior boots, ring bells. These are actually a little harder to come by than you might expect. I mean, the ring bell is actually, we have a hard time finding the bell that we like that has this particular sound. This is actually a fire alarm bell. So underneath it, you could, if you scratched off all this red, all this black, you'd see red. In boxing, you hear like a really like real tinny type sound, like ding, 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 ding. And in WWE, you hear it's rounder. It's got a little bit more like heart to it. It just feels different, and I love that sound. I mean, to me, that sound is just what childhood is made of in a way, you know, or what my childhood was made of. The Rock's $5,000 shirt. He referred to them as his $5,000 shirts. This is my Hollywood corner here. You got The Rock, and this is John Cena's chain gang soldier necklace. He had a little spinning necklace, which spun off into, no pun intended, spun off into a spinning championship and other things that spun, right? But this is kind of the beginning of the spinner. Have gorgeous George robes back there, Killer Kowalski, you know, legends of the business. Oh, it's funny, I was looking for this before. So the Andre singlet, this is a fun one. Underneath the singlet at WrestleMania 3, you can see something poking out. And this was what Andre wore after he had back surgery. So if you look at if you look at any shot, you see Hogan slamming Andre, you'll see this like other piece like kind of poking up, and that's why he was like so tight in there. I mean, this thing is a saddle, like it legitimately. But this was what he used to help himself keep up straight. And you got Andre kind of punched in there, punched in the leather. I don't know if you can see it. It's a little subtle. I actually just thought he wore this like recreationally just to recover until somebody had to point out to me like, oh no, you can actually see it at WrestleMania 3. You can see him wearing this thing. The more you get engaged in this product and the more you get engaged in the history of it, like you'll notice little things. Like, this is kind of an aside, but people are like, oh, what was the date of this? How many matches has that person won? I'm not really super good at the like off the top of my head, but I can tell you why. I can tell you how things are made and why they were made, right? So, and then all that other stuff is just research, right? So that's kind of like what I think as an archivist our strength should be, is just basically like telling you the story and why and how, you know, a little bit less so like, you know, this is the 15th match and the 14th day and this is sort of stuff. Like my brain does not keep that information very well. This, we were talking about this before, these are the booking books. So some people refer to them as the Bibles. It's essentially every match and every person in that match ever. So here's 87 to 88. I think this is October 11th, 87. 3 shows, one in Toronto with Orndorff and Rick Rude on top, Andre in the corner. So there's your A-Town. That's at 2 p.m. And then on top in Springfield, Mass was Brutus Beefcake versus Honky Tonk Man, and Savage and One Man Gang, Randy Savage and the One Man Gang. And then in your, C-Town, more or less, or your other town, you have Bam Bam Bigelow and Harley Race on top. There's notes about what's going on in the world. There's notes about who's off, who's on, who we want to promote, what the competition is doing. It's pretty much just this is the history of the business. And what's great about it is it's written in pencil, and it's very intentionally written in pencil, because you cannot plan this thing out and it go once and totally according to plan. Things are erased all over the place. No, maybe put that guy here. That guy's out. We're working on this guy. So everything is ever flowing and changing. Just to the point I said earlier about being able to have an idea and seeing it later. It's like this is the physical embodiment of that. What if we try this? Then there it's written down. Hero. I could go on and on because I love this stuff. And there's just usually like little hidden gems in here. This book specifically was Pat Patterson's book. So Vince McMahon would keep a book. Pat would keep a book. Bruce Pritchard kept books. Going back, Arnie Skolland would have the book at a period of time. I think Gorilla Monsoon at one time as well. And fun thing about this is that Vince McMahon still does these to this day. Every match, everything that ever happens is written down.
In pencil still?
In pencil. Yeah, because here's the idea, they write it out, and then once it actually happens, okay, no, that's actually not what happened, erase that, and boom. Whew.